Good morning, everybody, and a happy Tuesday morning to you. There's not too much royal family stuff. There's a lot of Harry, Meghan stuff. And also, I talked the other day in a live about people being unsubscribed, and you guys had some comments about that. This person said, wow, I heard this and thought this never happens to me, and then I looked and I was unsubscribed. This subscriber said, oh my goodness, I haven't seen your video since 2023, and all of a sudden you popped up. But honestly, this is one of the best ones. First, I was identified as a Russian bot. Now I'm not real. Next time, I'm going to be 43% of something. All right, let's move on. We're going to start off with King Charles and Queen Camilla this past Sunday. They arrived for church. Remember, they're staying at Balmoral. And so they get to the church. They waved at the well-wishers. This was a very special day because the king and queen were not awarded. They were handed copies of The Weather of My Being to mark their 20th wedding anniversary, and they premiered it for them. It's a song. It was composed by a gentleman named Paul Mueller, who in the past has worked on music for Catherine and William for their wedding, as well as King Charles' birthdays and his coronation. The piece that he composed actually is 3 songs, each of which reflects an aspect of love. Don't forget, on the 9th was their wedding anniversary. I just love them. I think Charles looks well rested. Of course, he always said that these tours that he goes on are the perfect tonic. And just as an FYI, before we move on, Charles and Camilla, it was announced, will lead the royal family on Easter Sunday. Buckingham Palace came out with that announcement. That's going to take place on the 20th, and the entire royal family will gather at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. And yeah, that's what they're going to do. All right. I think they look great. All right, let's move on. We have Princess Beatrice and her fabulous husband, Edo, Princess Eugenie, and Peter Phillips. Pictures were taken of them in the paddock prior to the F1 Grand Prix of Bahrain at the Bahrain International Circuit. I love the way Beatrice looks. Oh, you know who also was there? Mom Sarah Ferguson. I am glad to see her out and about. Remember, she's had 2 bouts of cancer and, nothing wrong with her hanging out with the family. Zara and Mike were also spotted out, and also there was Savannah Phillips. I think it's very nice to see all the cousins and all the family hanging out together. I wonder what Harry thinks when he sees pictures like these. You know what I'm saying? He could have been a part of this. They could have been a part of it. Yeah, I love Zara. All right, a big thank you to Remoulade Sauce as usual, because they show us everything that Zara and Beatrice and Eugenie were wearing during this event. All right, let's move on. Also, you should know that Princess Eugenie was photographed at the Convention and Exhibition Center in Hong Kong recently. All right, let's go back to King Charles and Queen Camilla. The Queen had a lot to say, which I'm kind of glad to hear it. Remember, the 2 of them are both in their 70s, and they had this 4-day trip to Italy, and it doesn't look like they're slowing down. Camilla told members of the British press while they were out of school in Rome that they should just, quote unquote, dream on if they thought that the king's health worries were going to slow the king down. She said, and I'm quoting, he loves his work and it keeps him going. I think it's wonderful, if you've been ill and you are recovering, you're getting better, and now he wants to do more and more and more. And that's the problem. That's what he's driven by, helping others. So that statement is apparently a big sentiment shared by those who work around him. People apparently have said, why can't you get him to take it easy? And they all say, senior palace officials have said, we've tried. He's not slowing down. So I don't think anybody should be really surprised that Buckingham Palace just came out and announced that Charles and Camilla are going to take part in a number of state visits this year. Unbelievable. Now, in the middle of all of this, royal sources are saying that the king's ongoing cancer treatment is going tremendously well, despite that small temporary setback last month when he was very briefly hospitalized after having some adverse side effects from his treatment. They said it was a quote-unquote blip and very short-lived, and that's why the doctors are content for him to maintain his busy workload. It's being reported the king has 4 C's: climate, community, culture, and commonwealth. And they remain at the center of his work and will continue to shape his schedule of engagements. Love it. All right, let's move on. All right, let's move on to some of these stories. What's being written here is that William is going to strip Harry and Meghan of their titles the second he becomes king. And they're also saying the reason that King Charles isn't doing it is because he's very concerned about his image and he doesn't want backlash. And he's also very stung by Harry labeling him an emotionally cold father. How would it look then? He'd be seen as petty if he just yanked back the titles. Behind the scenes, they're saying the royals have sanctioned the removal, and even though it would require an act of parliament, those in the know say the palace has already had some secret meetings to discuss it. It's being alleged Meghan has become aware of this, and she's demanding a meeting with King Charles. She wants to meet him to get assurances that their titles will not be removed after Charles passes away. I don't see what assurances Charles can give. Once he's gone, William can do as he likes. They need those titles. For Harry, they're saying it would be devastating, but for Meghan, it would be humiliating and would damage her brand and any money-making potential she has. So she really wants to meet with King Charles and get some assurances from him that she and Harry can keep the titles after he passes away. All I can say is the two of them should have thought ahead to the possible consequences before they open their mouths. Now, a lot of people are talking about the fact that Harry, even after having everything removed from him, is still running around masquerading as a working royal during his Ukraine visit. I have to agree. I believe that's exactly what he's doing. Remember, he and Meghan wanted the half in, half out life. They wanted to do this kind of thing. He wanted to run around acting like a royal while making his own money. The Queen said no, but yet that's pretty much what he's doing anyway. So what they're saying is, while you could argue he's not a working royal and he doesn't have any military appointments, he shouldn't be doing these quasi-royal tours. People are also talking about the fact that his decision to undertake these visits that resemble royal visits could pose a real question over a potential royal return. One of the questions people are asking is this like a step towards coming back at some point in the future? Well, I can answer that one. The answer is no. Now, he showed up unannounced in Ukraine after claiming that he was not safe in the UK, but yet he had an unbelievable contingent of security in the Ukraine. No, and they've said that. Now, I want you to keep that in mind. Do you guys remember this woman up above? She is a paramedic and she met Harry and Meghan at the Invictus Games. Well, she gave an interview and she said that Harry arrived without pomp, without a motorcade, and without theatrics. Yes, but he had a full contingent of security by her own words. She said he simply stood behind us as one of us, a person who understands loss, who knows what it means to serve and what it means to rise after a fall. And I was happy to hug him again, along with the entire Invictus scheme. We're all in this together. What does that tell you? That right there almost sounds like a jibe towards Meghan Markle. He arrived without pomp and circumstance and a motorcade. One of the reasons why people think that Harry is acting like he's on a royal tour is because while he was in Ukraine, he received a traditional Ukrainian Easter basket after meeting Ukraine's economic minister. Why is he meeting with the economic minister? That makes absolutely no sense. Now, one of the things that supposedly was in this basket was some cake that was given to Harry, which he apparently then went home and there's a video that Meghan put up on Instagram again showing supposedly, allegedly, Lilibet handing out the cake to all the family. Now, I have an issue with this. First of all, does anybody believe that Meghan Markle would let the family eat something that she didn't bake herself? It could be poisoned. Does anybody believe that? Because I don't. Number two, supposedly Lily hands this to Harry, who goes, "Thank you." I have to say, looking at Harry's hands, they look very effeminate. I'm sorry, that's just my personal opinion. And she also put up this ridiculous video showing pancakes and this lazy Susan spinning around with fruit on it, which frankly, it didn't look like it had been cut well. It looked like it had been completely savaged. But I'm sorry, this is put up, by the way, supposedly, allegedly, Harry was home from Ukraine before Meghan went to New York. I'm sorry, I don't believe that for a second. Now, with the children being shown in a lot of the Instagram posts, this is creating an issue, it's being reported, which this I do believe, between Harry and Meghan, because Meghan is looking for all the attention she can get to try to save her As Ever lifestyle brand, which is not going well. Harry, on the other hand, doesn't want the children in front of the camera. And I myself find it extremely hypocritical that the only time you wheel your children out, even if it's just the back of the head or the side of the face, is when you think you can make money from them. That's disgusting. Now, another interesting thing came out on Twitter, as you can see. This guy to the left, I showed him to you in my videos of the Invictus Games. He walked right up. He sat right down next to Harry and Meghan. I was never able to identify him. I don't know who he is, but yet he showed up in Ukraine. There he is. No clue who this man is. Now, in going back to the whole security thing, you should know that the former Scotland Yard chief, Day Davies, has said that Harry's assertion about his security arrangements are complete nonsense. He has a liaison officer who has access to the most up-to-date intelligence reports. This person then went on to say that the liaison officer deals with Harry's own security people who are extremely capable. And the idea that he needs 24/7 armed protection is ridiculous. So too is the idea that Britain is unsafe for him. And this new argument he's advancing is frankly bizarre. It was a Ravik decision, pure and simple, and it had nothing to do with the royal family. Remember, Harry's new argument is they were trying to make us stay in the family. And a high-placed source told the Mail on Sunday that this is a new argument. Nobody remembers Prince Harry or his lawyers making that argument in the past. And the decision to scale back security was discussed at that time with Harry and his lawyers, and nothing was said. Let's also not forget, Harry was told by the Queen that he would lose his security. I think he thought the Queen was bluffing, and then, she pulled the pin and he was like, what? At the same time, a source close to Mr. Patel, who was the Home Secretary in 2020, said the decision to scale back Harry's security was a professional one that Ravik took, and it would have been beneath the Queen not to allow Ravik to do their job professionally and do things the proper way. You guys know what I'm saying. The thing that gets me, and I agree with this article, is that this is a problem that Harry created. He's the one who described killing 25 Taliban as chess pieces taken off of a board. He just casually, discussed killing people. That is a big red flag. He didn't fully consider the consequences, so he potentially wrote his own death warrant. In case you guys forgot, the army was furious and said he'd let the side down with his careless remarks. Former top brass Colonel Tim Collins said, "We don't do notches on the rifle, but we never did." Harry blames King Charles for not stepping in and using his influence. Instead, he wants the already overburdened British taxpayer to pick up the tab for his mistakes. So at this point, people are saying that Harry is probably disoriented. His behavior is strange, and Harry is pushing the legal battle for the simple fact that he just doesn't know when to stop. Nobody feels unsafe in England, and he's angry about things, and he's being dogmatic in his approach, which is, rather unfortunate. And in the meantime, and I've said this before, David Sherborne has probably already bought his second home in Paris because these attorneys are sucking him dry. I think they know that these cases can't be won, but hey, they're preying on Harry's delusions. They're preying on his paranoia and his fear, and they're making a fortune. Now, with all of this going on, people are concerned that Harry is going to write a second book. Don't forget, he's already said that he pulled out so many pages, he has enough for a second book. And now with all of his statements about the royals are trying to trap him, and for him, this is very personal. There are fears about what he's going to do when the decision goes against him. And I have a feeling it really will. It's being reported that his comments are veiled threats, essentially, that he's going to tell more unless things don't go his way. I got to be honest, I don't think there's a whole lot more to tell, but he has to understand that if he does another book, there is zero chance, zero, of him ever reconciling with his family, even in private. Now, moving on to something else, if you can believe this, Harry and Meghan, it's being reported, have launched a behind-the-scenes probe to find out why people in Hollywood don't like them. It is being reported they are extremely upset that the Harry and Meghan show on Netflix didn't get an Emmy nomination, and yet the Beckham show won like 6 or 7 awards. They said that Emmy nod was a massive blow. They feel there's an orchestrated hate campaign against them from both sides of the Atlantic, and they're going to identify who's behind it. Can you believe this? Instead of just admitting people just don't like them, they're not likable. No, I'm saying that because what's being reported is they don't want to look like sore losers, so they're asking Oprah and Ellen to investigate to better understand the setback and address any potential sabotage. I wonder who Harry and Meghan are going to blame for the failure of her podcast on Lemonada, because the ratings of it have not even gone up as high as they did with Archetypes. People are panning it. It's getting 2 out of 5 stars. It's not doing well. And I mean, she's going to blame that on somebody else also. So, of course, Meghan's claiming she's never going to listen to what other people have to say. She's just going to soldier on. That's a mistake, because if you're listening to what people are saying, maybe you can change the trajectory, of what's going on. And it's being said she really wants Jennifer Aniston to come on that podcast. Jennifer Aniston is not going to go on there, I assure you. Let's catch up now on this thing that happened when Meghan went to New York to see Gypsy. She went to see Audra McDonald. And remember, this was a big deal with pictures of them meeting and hugging, and everybody was like, oh my God, it's so wonderful. And let's also not forget that Meghan went in a 4-car caravan. I believe she went in a 4-car caravan because otherwise people wouldn't have known she was there. We've already discussed everybody else goes without the 4 cars and it's not a big deal. So I knew something had to be going on behind the scenes. This woman is a big star. She doesn't know Meghan. Nobody knows Meghan. She was a nothing burger. And she came out with, Meghan, I admire her for walking with grace and strength and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what's going on? Well, come to find out, this woman is represented by WME. So just like all the other stars, she was asked to do this, in my opinion. And finally, these articles coming out saying Meghan is in a business venture with Amy Schumer and Connie Britton and all these people. Actually, what she did was she invested in Midi Health, which is a virtual menopause clinic. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but okay. Apparently some other big, A-listers are joining this. Personally, I'm sick of hearing about her investment portfolio while she's telling people that she's doing this as Everbrand and all the stuff she's doing because they need money. How are you needing money if you're investing millions into businesses? Obviously, you ain't that broke. And I hope they're not giving out meds virtually, because that's one way to set yourself up for a lawsuit the first time somebody has a real medical emergency from the meds you're handing out. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, my Amazon wishlist, my second channel, and a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale, as well as a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.